what happens if you don't file? So failing to report your cryptocurrency transactions can lead to severe penalties, including fines up to 75% of unpaid taxes. This is the time to lock in. Whenever it gets noisy out there, whether it's euphoria, when it's euphoria and the market is going to go up and it's not going to go down, and diamond hands, and then you see stuff. I knew I should have took some more money out the market when Scottie Pippen said that he met Satoshi. Is you can get an airdrop. The IRS considers that as income at the time that you receive it. This is very important. The IRS considers that as income at the time that you receive it. It can go down 90% and you never sold it, but you got that income at a certain level. So this is the tricky thing with airdrops, and there's a lot of projects that are thinking about a better way to do this, because most of the airdrops this year, there's been a very few that have gone up in value, but most of them have gone down 75%. So here you are, let's say it was a small amount. Let's say you got $500 and that has gone down to $75. The IRS is still going to tax you on the $500, even if you didn't sell it.
What is Bitcoin?
It's a technology that enables people to move money around anonymously.
It's harder to trace and it's so anonymous.
100% untraceable.
People like to think that Bitcoin is anonymous.
Well, good afternoon.
But buried in last month's special counsel indictment of 12 alleged Russian spies is an explanation of how law enforcement tracked and identified the suspects using their cryptocurrency transactions.
The defendants used a network of computers around the world, and they paid for it using cryptocurrencies.
One blockchain developer was also able to trace Bitcoin purchases back to Russia's intelligence agency, the GRU, using only public information. He agreed to show Vice News how almost anyone with a Bitcoin wallet could do something similar.
It is not a good idea to commit crime with Bitcoin, because the moment you have one single weak link in your operational security, all of your history is now exposed. As we've...
All right, so I know we're not here to do any nefarious activity or do any crime on chain, but this is just to show you that Bitcoin and most cryptos, every crypto really, is not anonymous for years and years. And I think we're at a place where most people know and realize that your transactions that you're doing, they are traceable. It is a public ledger. This is why we got into Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, because we wanted that transparent system. It was created so that there's not that opacity like there is in the traditional finance. So for some reason, there's been this narrative, and for a lot of people, some people still do believe that you can transact on chain and nobody knows. That is not the case. So there's been bust after bust, and people have been found out that have stolen crypto, have evaded taxes, and we're going to talk about all of that today. All right, so without further ado, my disclaimer, as you know, I am not a licensed professional, so you need to make sure that you're doing your own research, that you're checking out any project that's presented here. I cannot give you investment advice. So as far as taxes are concerned, make sure that you're talking to a CPA, a tax accountant, a financial advisor, or a professional before you decide to make any decisions on your own. So if you haven't already on socials, please follow me on Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And we always like to keep some fresh information there outside of these sessions. So the agenda for today is talking about why you need to file your crypto taxes. Yes, you do have to file taxes on crypto. Want to talk about some general rules for 2024 and 2025, tax software that you can use, some 2025 tips and the outlook on the market. And we're going to talk about the tariffs and the state of crypto and kind of how to plan for the rest of the year. So just going back to that first point that was made, this is on bitcoin.org. You need to make sure that, again, any transaction that you're doing on chain can be seen. So that being said, Bitcoin is often perceived as an anonymous payment network, but in reality, Bitcoin is probably the most transparent payment network in the world. I'm gonna repeat that. Bitcoin is probably the most transparent payment method or network in the world. At the same time, Bitcoin can provide acceptable levels of privacy when used correctly. Always remember that it is your responsibility to adopt good practices in order to protect your privacy. So that being said, with Bitcoin, there are open ledgers. It is an open ledger. You can go to scanners. So there's different scanners on each blockchain. So for example, there's Etherscan, where you can go and look at any transaction on the Ethereum blockchain. The same goes for Bitcoin. You can go to bitcoin.org. It'll take you right there so you can look at transactions. And if I have your wallet, or if you have my wallet address, you can see every transaction I've done on the Bitcoin blockchain, Ethereum blockchain, Solana, so on and so forth. So this is not just Bitcoin specific. This is for just about every blockchain that's out there. Now, there are some blockchains that are privacy based, like Monero. There's one that's called Secret Network, and they have some things built in to protect your privacy. A lot of the zero knowledge proof technology that's on L2s, those L2s that are on Ethereum, they are there so that every single thing that you do, or all of your identity, is not shared. However, those transactions can be traced. So I just want to nail that point down before we move forward and to talk about why crypto taxation, or you filing your taxes and keeping up with how it affects you, is so important. So anytime you on-ramp onto crypto, you have to do it I'm just leave it with two different ways. For most people, it's with a credit card or with a bank account. So I wonder how people feel. And in the beginning, I felt the same way, but I wonder why people would think that, okay, if I use my bank account or my credit card to on-ramp into crypto, then there's no transaction that's there. So obviously you have to do the know your customer, anti-money laundering rules when you got your bank account or your credit card. So that's already there. That's already established. But if you're using Coinbase or Robinhood, that's what most people use to on-ramp into crypto, at least here in the US. Then there's that trace that's right there, and everything that happens from that point on is traceable. Even if you're doing it on DeFi, so let's say you're using Metarize, you still have to on-ramp. A lot of people will go from a centralized exchange like a Coinbase or Kraken or Uphold, and then go to MetaMask, and for some reason they feel like, well, now I'm in a decentralized anonymous world, but that is not the case. So MetaMask is a company, Coinbase is a company, banks are companies, and banks, companies, anyone, they're not going to jail for you. That is not what's going to happen. So if they are subpoenaed for information or need to give information over to the IRS or any regulatory body, they will do so. So they will take care of themselves. And here's an example from the Southern District of New York, the United States Attorney's Office. IRS obtains court order authorizing summons for records relating to U.S. taxpayers who fail to report and pay taxes on cryptocurrency transactions. So this has happened with Coinbase, for example. Coinbase will turn over any records to any jurisdiction that they're under, because again, they're not going to go to jail for you. Now, that being said, if within the terms and conditions, they do protect your privacy as much as possible. Apple, for example, has that same thing. There's been times in the past where Apple has been subpoenaed for information, and Apple says, well, we're not going to give up this piece of information because this is the contract or agreement that we have with our customers. But again, they're not going to go to jail. So if the pressure is put on, they will fold. All right. So we got that out the way. Now let's talk about how crypto is considered as far as taxation. Now, currently, crypto is considered as property, and property tax rules in the U.S. apply. Now, some of you may not be in the U.S., so this may not be 100% accurate for where you are, but generally, some of the rules that apply, they apply elsewhere as well. So if you're in Canada, it's kind of similar. In Europe, it depends on which country you are, because there are some tax havens there. But in the U.S., crypto is considered property. So let's talk about what happens if you don't file on your taxes. We're going to talk about how the property is considered by the IRS in taxes. But what happens if you don't file? So failing to report your cryptocurrency transactions can lead to severe penalties, including fines up to 75% of unpaid taxes, interest, and even time for up to 5 years. Starting in 2025, crypto exchanges will file detailed 1099 forms. We're going to talk about the detailed form. I have an example on Coinbase. So yeah, you can't get around this. Again, crypto is taxable property. IRS enforcement is increasing. I know there's a lot of layoffs with the IRS and a lot of federal agencies, but this particular area, taxation and collecting taxes is the way that governments get paid. So they have to collect those taxes. That's a source of income. This is not going to be relaxed. So I know there's a lot of deregulation and rules, but as far as getting to the money, it's a business. So think about the government from a business. If you're running a business and you have a service, you are going to collect your money, and the IRS is no different. And again, those consequences are penalties of up to 75% of the unpaid taxes, fines up to 250K. I know I don't have that just laying around, and then nobody wants to go to jail for not paying crypto taxes. So pay your taxes so you're not on your vacation and you just have to run and try to do the dash. But you may or may not have heard of Roger Ver. Some people call him Bitcoin Jesus. I'm not going to call him that, but he was arrested in Spain for tax evasion. So made a lot of money and put a lot of videos out about how taxation is evil and we're not supposed to do that. We can all have our philosophies around taxes, and we had the Boston Boston Tea Party a long time ago with the taxes, and double taxation is a thing, and we can have all these rules and we can have our convictions. I think it is very important to have our convictions. That's one reason why we're here in crypto. But in the meantime, pay your taxes, even if you have a notable cause and you want to, get the word out that taxes are illegal. Just pay them in the meantime, and you can just try to recoup later. So don't end up in jail following the advice of people for laws that are on the book. So what the law says, do that. Yes, there are and there can be unjust laws, but until those are overturned, you need to make sure that they're doing what you need to do. So generally, these are some things that you want to consider with your taxes and how you're governing your current crypto and moving forward. So you want to look at what your cost basis is. And this is not just for crypto. This is for stocks. This is for real estate. This is for anything that you have that's considered an investment that may go down or up in value over time. So you want to look at what your cost basis is. And that's basically what you paid for that crypto, that token at the time that you purchased it. Now, you can broaden out cost basis as well if you're buying over time. Now, this is not related directly to taxes, but sometimes people will talk about your cost basis if you are DCAing or dollar cost averaging over time, and you're trying to compare your profit and loss over time. So let's say you've been DCAing into something that's going from 25 cents to $1 over a year's time, then your cost basis is in there, and you compare that to your profit or loss. But for taxes, the IRS is looking at what you paid for that token at the time that you bought it. Now, the proceeds will happen when you sell or trade that said token. So in the meantime, if you're just holding it, then there's no taxable event just for holding. There may be some other things. I'm gonna touch on that in just a second, but just holding it doesn't create a taxable event. So you can buy, let's say you were one of those ones that bought Bitcoin at 2 cents and it's now $80-something thousand, and you haven't moved it, haven't touched it, then there's no taxable event in that time. All right. Now, as far as when you do take proceeds, when you do make a transaction to sell or trade, whether you do that in the short term, which is less than a year, or if you do that in the long term, more than 1 year, how you're taxed is different. So short-term capital gains is basically you're paying taxes on your taxable rate at that time. So it's just like income for the year. I bought something January 1st, I sold it December 31st. That's a short-term capital gain. I'm going to pay a higher tax rate. And long-term capital gains, you usually pay a lower rate than what you would have if you were to sell it within that 1 year. So some people have a strategy of 1 year and 1 day if they plan on getting out of a position to lower their taxes. That may or may not be a strategy, but generally here we talk about long-term investing. So we want most of our proceeds and what we collect to be long-term. Now, excuse me. Now, there are cases where I would advocate, and this is one of the mistakes that I made in the last 2 cycles, is not taking short-term profit. There's these things, and you don't hear it as much as you used to, but diamond hands was the big thing in the last bull run. Diamond hands, diamond hands, diamond hands. And I can't tell you the number of projects that I round tripped or basically let go all the way up and come all the way down because of the diamond hands narrative. So there are times, and unfortunately in crypto, because we're trying to hit a home run every single time, you may be up, and I'll speak for myself, you may be up 5x, maybe up 10x. I've been up 40x at times, and there's just this part of you that says, and maybe it'll go up just a little bit more. So going in with a strategy is very important for profit taking. Getting a little off here, but I just want to leave you with that. Before you buy anything, know what your points are, and then have the discipline to sell at that time. So we're all here to sell at some point. That might be 30 years down the line. Some people say that they're never going to sell, and they're going to give to their kids. Well, that's fine. But most of us are here because we're saying that we want to change our financial situation. We want to change our family tree from a financial standpoint. But that does take some profit taking at certain points. So, all right, I'll leave that there. Form 8949. This is one of the forms that you use for crypto, and we're going to talk about some tax software that'll do that for you. But it's the sales and other dispositions of capital assets. So it's basically like a summary of all the different transactions that you had over a set period of time for certain tokens. And then Schedule D is for capital gains and losses. So this applies to other assets as well. But you can use this. I've used this form for NFT sale. I'm going to share a story about an NFT that I bought that didn't turn out so well, but I used the the Schedule D in order to take that capital loss on that transaction. So I'll show you that example. Now, here are the taxable events. Again, selling crypto for fiat, or if you're trading from one currency to another. So let's say you bought some Bitcoin. I don't want to do Bitcoin anymore. Let me go into Ethereum. That will constitute a taxable event. Selling, whether it's for profit or loss, is a taxable event. Using your crypto to buy goods and services. So now there's the MetaMask card that's out there, Avalanche card, Crypto.com card, Coinbase has cards. So yes, you can use your crypto to buy things for goods or services, but that becomes an event because there's something that has to happen. That crypto has to be sold, converted over to fiat, and then used. Receiving crypto as income. Now, this is where it gets tricky and why tax software is so helpful. If you're mining crypto, so we had a session before about DePIN, decentralized physical infrastructure networks. So if you have a Hive mapper in your car, you have a demo device, you're mining some crypto in your house, that is counted as income. So as those tokens are coming in, that's something that you didn't earn before, didn't have before. So that is considered as earned income. Staking reward. So like on Coinbase, we showed that you can stake, or if you're doing it in your ledger, if you're doing it in your Phantom wallet or your MetaMask wallet, you're staking to get more crypto. Anytime you get rewards, that is counted as income. Airdrops. We love a good airdrop, but that is money that you didn't have before. So this is the tricky part. This goes back to taking profit. What really sucks right now, and just for lack of better words, is you can get an airdrop. The IRS considers that as income at the time that you receive it. This is very important. The IRS considers that as income at the time that you receive it. It can go down 90% and you never sold it, but you got that income at a certain level. So this is the tricky thing with airdrops, and there's a lot of projects that are thinking about a better way to do this, because most of the airdrops this year, there's been a very few that have gone up in value, but most of them have gone down 75%. So here you are, let's say it was a small amount. Let's say you got $500 and that has gone down to $75. The IRS is still going to tax you on the $500, even if you didn't sell it. So that may be a reason to take some profit on an airdrop when you get it in the beginning. It's not financial advice, but that's just based on what I've observed over the past years. Again, there are some that do go up. Hyperliquid was one that went up for a while, starting to go back down, but not all of them do that. Most airdrops do go down in value. And then receiving crypto via a hard fork. So you just might be holding something, and then the foundation will say, okay, we're going to put this up to a vote. We're going to fork the chain. Or there might be enough people in the project that are going to fork the chain. And so that's why there's a Bitcoin Cash and a Bitcoin Diamond and a Bitcoin Satoshi's Vision and a Bitcoin this and that. And so there's projects that do this. They fork and then you get extra tokens. That doesn't happen as much. And maybe it still does on Bitcoin. I just don't know. But, you know, in the early days, people just were getting racks on racks just for holding the crypto. And which, again, is a great thing. And that's one of the reasons why we're here and what has attracted us to crypto. But at the same time, that is a taxable event. Whether you sell it or not, whether you trade it or not, that is a taxable event. So those are things that you need to file taxes on. Now, all that being said, that's very complex. How do you keep up with all of that? Now, some people keep it very simple. They might only be on PayPal, Robinhood, or Coinbase, and just buy and keep everything right there. It's going to be, you know, very easy. You can just download a report and then you're done with it. If you're like me and you like to tinker around, you're trying to learn things, you're trying to figure out how to use all these hot wallets and cold wallets and new protocols and depend projects, and you just got stuff all over the place. You might have 100 wallets. I don't know how many I have. They're just all over the place. When it gets to that point, I highly, 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 highly recommend using tax software. Here are some examples. This is not an exhaustive list, but these are some that you can use. Some of the more popular ones: Coinly, CoinLedger, CoinTing, ZenLedger, and I've used several ones in the past. This is one that I personally like. This is one that I've been using recently, which is CoinLedger. So you can get 10% off with this code here. So you can take a snapshot of that and type that in, or you can scan that QR code. This will be recorded, so you can get that at a later time if you need to. But 10% off, it'll save you some money on your tax software. So tax tips: if you never filed taxes before, you might need a CPA. For taxes in general, if you could afford it, getting the CPA is probably for the better, because they know the tax code better than most of us do. All CPAs are not created equal. So you can't just go and I've done this before, going into TurboTax, like a H&R Block, going in there and just saying, you know, can you do this for me? A lot of people are not trained in crypto, don't even know crypto. So you might have a CPA who's a very good CPA, has been a CPA for 30 years and knows taxes generally inside and out, but this is a whole different thing. So if you're going to get a CPA, I would look for a CPA that has experience in crypto and blockchain specifically, because this is just a whole set of rules. Kind of like going to a doctor. You know, when you get your annual physical, they're not a specialist. They're not an ENT. They're not a orthopedic doctor. So, you know, the same thing applies with crypto. All accountants are not the same. All real estate agents are not the same. So that's just something to think about when you're looking for a CPA. It's not necessary, but it may be recommended if you have years and years and you never file and you just need a landing place. Keeping good records. So going back to CoinLedger, I'm gonna just play a little bit of this video here. They give an example of how you can.
Today we're going to show you how to do your Coinbase
to track.
Here's how we can do that using CoinLedger. First, let's select Add Account, and then let's search for Coinbase. Once that pops up, we'll select the button here, and we'll want to proceed to the auto import method. Now, CoinLedger supports both the CSV file import method and the API import method. If you want to try file, you can do so here, and you can actually see a file import guide, which walks you through those steps. But in most cases, we recommend the API import process since it's much faster.
All right, so I'm gonna stop that there. And the API method, let me just go back. The API method is really helpful. So basically what it does is it allows a constant communication between the tax software and the wallet that you're using. And you can do this on both centralized exchanges, decentralized, well, not on decentralized exchanges, but your wallets. So let's say you have some Coinbase transactions. You can hook up your CoinLedger or other tax software through API connection, and they're going to communicate throughout the year. And you can do that with your MetaMask wallet. You can do that with your Phantom wallet. You can do that with your Backpack wallet. And they have, even for ones that they don't support directly, you can still import those CSV files, and they give you a template for that. So if you're like me, you have thousands of transactions that are happening throughout the year. You may not even know some of the transactions that are happening throughout the year. You might be getting staking rewards, and that might be compounding on a daily basis. So they might be paying you out on a daily basis, might be weekly, might be monthly, but you might have all these transactions that you don't even know about. So keeping track of it may be hard. May be hard for a lot of people that are doing more things. But if everything is all in one exchange for you, like if let's say you're just doing it on Coinbase or Robinhood, then you can just download that report, and then you can just upload that. A lot of the tax software like TurboTax and FreeTax, they have ways that you can just upload those one things. But even if it is just one exchange, like a Coinbase, for example, you can still import that into a CoinLedger if you want to be, I guess, more on the safer side, because they have the experience and the software to fill out those 8949 forms for you, summarize it for you. And so this one is really good, again, in my opinion, because it gives you a notification at the end of the year that your tax documents are ready based on all of the different wallets and exchanges that you added. Now, it doesn't necessarily make it easy, because you do have to remember all the different wallets that you have. So again, if you're like me, if you got 50 Solana wallets and you got 50 Ethereum wallets, then you gotta transport all of that information into there for you. So sometimes a simple life is an easier life, but we're not always here to be simple when you're diving into crypto. So, all right. Next tip is you might be able to still reduce your taxes for 2024. Now, this is a general tax rule where you can still deposit into an IRA, individual retirement account, a traditional or a Roth individual retirement account, after the year has passed, so the calendar year. So you can put money into an account, into that IRA account. The contribution limit is $7,000 or $8,000 if you're 50 years or older, and that could reduce your taxable liability. Going to be different for everybody, but that's a way to, one, save for your retirement, and also might be able to reduce your taxable liability. So you still have time for this. Is April 5th, 2025. If you're watching this at a later point after the 15th, then that's going to be a no-go in the U.S. Might be different in the country that you're in if you're outside of the U.S., but something to keep in mind in the U.S. Still have some time to take advantage of that. So this is not just for crypto. So let's say you have 2,000 in Bitcoin, you have 2,000 in stocks that you want to put in IRA, 2,000 in cash. You can put all of that together in an IRA. And there's different options for you. Fidelity, this is kind of hot off the press. So I have this, not endorsing Fidelity, but it's, obviously one of the biggest banks, biggest fund managers out there. Fidelity, they allow you to do crypto directly into an IRA. So they have funds, ETFs, and all that you can do like in a brokerage account. But now they are actually custodying your crypto for you in the IRA. There's another one, I Trust Capital. That's an option. There's some other ones that I've seen in the past, but these two are the biggest ones as far as I have seen. There are more. Do your own research. This may or may not be advantageous for you. Now, if you have lost money in the past, this is another way where you can start to save on your tax, or at least get some deductions. So if you gotten wrecked, this is one of the crypto terms. It basically lost money. It might have been a lot of money, usually with people saying you're getting wrecked. Then you have some opportunity here. Pump.fund was the craze in 2024 and the beginning of 2025. That activity has fallen off a whole lot because a lot of people have lost money and the liquidity just isn't there anymore. But here's a stat. Nearly 90% of users who traded meme coins launched from Pump.fund have either lost their investment or made less than $100 in profit. Despite these facts, only the successful trades gain the spotlight and create FOMO. So most people have lost money. There was a stat earlier, and it's probably changed. It was a couple of months ago. 96% of people who were in Pump.fund never made more than $10,000, but 90% or more have lost their investment. So yeah, you get the stories of, yeah, this person put $10 in and now they're a millionaire. This person put $50 into this token at launch and it's gone up to 23 million. Yes, those stories are going to make the news, but this is Pump.fund is the lottery system. So, you know, once you start getting into the latest meme that just jumped off, or the latest token for that matter, most tokens are memes, really, because there's all these tokens that say they're going to change the world. They have the fastest blockchain, and they've never done any transactions. They have all these partnerships, and you don't see anything happening. At that point, that token is just a meme. Until there's, in my opinion, until there's something that they've done, then just consider it a meme coin. But, you know, they're true memes, like, you know, the ones you see here. Doge is the biggest. There's, you know, all these different versions of Pepe's and all these different narrative coins that came out. You know, I was in the gym. This guy was talking about a Charleston White token, and then, you know, there's people that's rappers. You know, in 2021, 2020, NFTs were the big thing. So the meme coin thing was big this cycle, but NFTs was a thing a few years ago. So you had Tory Lanez coming out. You had the Migos that had their NFTs. You had Snoop with the NFTs and all that stuff in the metaverse. We're going to talk about that just a second. But, you know, all of that went to zero. Now, that being said, you can claim losses up to 3,000 per year. So if you did buy the Migos NFT a few years ago and it has gone to nothing, then you might be able to claim some of those losses. So you can claim up to 3,000 a year, and then anything above that, you can forward those losses to future years. Now, this is something where investing is a benefit beyond just crypto, but just period. And I just wish more people started to drop the fear around investing. Of course, we don't want to lose any money, but there are people who for generations and generations and years have invested because they may feel like, well, even if I lose, I'm not losing, because if I lose my investment, I can still claim this against my taxes for years in the future. So this is, you know, we don't obviously want to have to take advantage of this, but tax loss harvesting is basically, if you've taken a loss, you can claim that against your taxes and forward those losses for future years. So that's something. Now there are some loopholes. I'm not going to talk about the loopholes. Forbes has a guide in there. They talk about what one of those big loopholes here that exists in crypto that doesn't exist in stocks right now. So that's for you to take advantage of if you want to go that route. But Forbes put that out there, so you can check that out. Crypto tax loss harvesting: a strategic guide for minimizing taxes. That's something that you can just Google. Check that out. All right, so let me give you a real world example of what I did. So again, back in 2020, the metaverse was there. We all were going to be in the metaverse. I still think we're going to go there. You know, you got the Ray-Bans, the Meta Ray-Bans are coming out. You got Google is working on something. I know Apple is working on something as well. The technology is getting better. We're going to get there. We're just not there yet. But in 2020, you could not tell me that we were not going into the metaverse by the end of the year. Everybody was locked down. everybody was doing stuff online, and so this was a big sale. So I'm gonna play this video of this NFT project that I got into called Matrix World. I saw this and I thought it was going to be it. Cool. All right. So this was like one of their first trailers, and at the time, interoperability was like the new word, the new slang word of crypto as well. So you had the metaverse and interoperability. It's much easier than it is now. Crypto has some ways to go as far as being, moving cross chain, but it's so much easier now. But a few years ago, going from one blockchain to the next, it costs a lot, and it was not an easy process. It took a lot of time. It might have been a day for Ethereum to go to Flow blockchain, for example. So this was a project where it was Flow blockchain that had, and Flow blockchain has all the gaming, not the gaming, but the sports NFTs. So it had NFL All Day and NBA Top Shot, which was huge in 2020. And then it was this world with Ethereum. So half the world was Ethereum and half the world was Flow, and you can go back and forth between the two. And I was like, oh, that's it. So basically, I bought one NFT that went up. I'm not going to tell you how much it went up to, but I bought it for a little, and it went up to a lot. And I bought this metaverse land. I was like, oh, if I buy this metaverse land, I'm going to have good proximity in the metaverse, and people are going to come and check out my house and this and that. Well, didn't quite turn out like I thought. So it's now valued at $175, and I cut my position because it went down a whole lot. And so I took some tax losses on there. I harvested those losses, and I was able to use that towards my taxable liability. So if that's you, don't feel bad. You'll feel bad a little bit, but I hope you're still not kicking yourself yet. Still, from 2020, when we all were going to the metaverse, yeah, Snoop made a killing in the metaverse. I'm looking at the comments here, and he still has his houses and land, and it's going there, but we're just not there. So if you got an old NFT, try to sell it for a penny. If it's not worth anything, try to give it away. Just keep the quality ones. I'm meander just a little bit. When it comes to NFTs, the ones that are still holding their value are your CryptoPunks, Bored Apes, your Mad Lab, just like the biggest projects on each one of the biggest blockchains. And that's where the value is. Yes, you may find a gem somewhere else, but that's where most of the value is. So that's another conversation for another day. But if you have those losses, you can harvest them. All right, so we're going to just look at what's up for 2025. Let me switch over so you can see this screen. All right, share this window. All right, so Coinbase has a good guide out there. You can just go to Coinbase and search Beginner's Guide to U.S. New Crypto Rule Taxes. And so they have some things for 2025. So beginning in 2025, this is something that's new. Brokers like Coinbase are required to report gross proceeds from your crypto sales and exchanges on a new form called the 1099-DA. So you're going to get a new form. It's supposed to make it a little easier for you to file your taxes. It used to be 1099-K, if I'm not mistaken, that they used to give you, but supposedly it's going to provide a clear record of the proceeds from your transactions, helping you calculate taxable gains or losses and simplifying the process of filing your tax return. So we shall see. This we'll come back next year and see if this has made the process any easier for anybody. But at this time, it's still kind of a pain if you have more than one exchange or a bunch of wallets like myself. All right, so we're gonna cut it right there. I do have some time set aside for Q&A and stuff. But you know what? Matter of fact, let me stop it right there because I want to break it before we go into the tariff conversation. So let me stop sharing, and I will answer any questions that you may have at this time about taxes or anything that you might be holding that might be a little fuzzy about. So you can either drop it in chat or you can unmute yourself. All right. All right. It must be good. Okay. Well, we'll keep this show going. All right. Let's go ahead and talk about taxes. Let me make sure. Are y'all still there with me? I think y'all might have dropped off.
We can hear you, man. You're good.
All right, good deal. All right, cool. All right, so let's talk about this tariff situation. Tariff. You know, there's somebody that put up posts on X and they just typed tariffs like 100 times because they were like, this is all you hear, and rightfully so. I mean, it's affecting everybody. There are people who didn't even know what a tariff was 3 months ago, and now they're tariff experts. So everybody's talking about tariff. We get phone calls, text, tariffs. What is going to do? Yes, we do need to consider it, think about it. It may, depending on how this turns out, it may or may not have a direct effect on our everyday lives. So it's a little too early to see, but I have heard from some business owners that are already paying for what this have done just over the past few weeks. So a lot of this stuff has hit the market just now, but this is some of the taxes, the reciprocal tariffs that have been put out there. I think it's on 185 countries. So this is not the entire list, but there's some controversy on how this was derived as well, because it's actually not based on the tariff that these countries were putting on our goods, but rather there's a trade. There was a calculation around the trade and imports, and that's how they derive these numbers. So it's not really a reciprocal tariff, but that's a whole nother conversation. We won't dig too far in that. But this basically on the yellow columns here is what the U.S. is slapping on tariffs on imports from other countries. So what does that mean? Let me just kind of break it down. Basically, tariff is an additional tax. So like think about alcohol, for example. There's an amount for the alcohol that you pay, but the state, the federal government, there might be local taxes. Like it might, that unit or that bottle of alcohol may cost $10, but by the time all the different taxes and tariffs are paid, it may be a $20 bottle of alcohol. So the same thing is happening with goods. So a shirt that's imported from China, for example, may cost $10 to buy, but that tariff might make it $15. So that's just something to think about, and it has people freaking out. The market took an absolute beating this week because of it. And this is just Friday. Just Friday, April 4th, 2025. The market was down. The Dow. Let me just speak about the Dow. The Dow was down 2,231 points, 5.5% decrease. And it was down like almost 4% the day before. It had another, I think, 2% down day. And this chart here is basically going back a year. So we basically are where we were a year ago in the Dow. The S&P is down, the NASDAQ is down, Russell 2000 is down. So it's rough. Like it is hard out here if you are holding assets. If you were brave enough to look in your 401k like I did, or your brokerage account, yeah, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And we don't know if this is over. So I'm not trying to scare anybody, but obviously the markets don't like uncertainty. And this is where we are. So we're down quite a bit from the high of 45,000 where we hit earlier this year. And just some of the news that's starting to come out talks about recession. JP Morgan says there's a 6% chance of a world recession, not just a U.S. recession, but a world recession. So will it happen? Will it not happen? You never know. You never know. You don't know the motivations behind banks or fund managers or big celebrities in crypto, key opinion leaders, KOLs. You may have heard that term. You might not necessarily know the motivation. So they may be speaking truth to power, or it may be manipulation of the market. We just don't know that. And this does happen. So, you know, if for example, if Warren Buffett were to come out tomorrow and say, I'm going to sell every stock that I have, that is going to tank the market. Obviously, that's illegal to do that. And I don't think he's ever done anything of that sort. But when he speaks, it matters. When a Jamie Dimon speaks, it matters. Peter Schiff was somebody that was very critical of Bitcoin. Charlie Munger is very critical of Bitcoin. So Ray Dalio, I think he's somewhat pro crypto and Bitcoin. So these are very big voices, and they will sway portions of the market or the entire market, just depending on how much influence they have. So that being said, I thought crypto was going to tank right away. We already took our beating. So if you've been holding crypto since January, you got the spanking just like I did. And so this is where the market was, a little over 100,000 at the beginning of the year, and it's down to 82,000. And in my estimation, I guess because Bitcoin was already down 20 to 25%, it's just like, yeah, I'm just going to sit right here. So some people feel like the larger cryptocurrencies are the canary in the coal mine for the stock market. So these are risk on assets. At the end of the day, there's a lot of talk about Bitcoin being digital gold. Bitcoin is a reserve asset. Bitcoin is a hedge against the dollar. It is not. All right, this is Winston's opinion. It's not. When the stock market goes down, Bitcoin goes down, and usually it goes up or down before it happens in the market. So there's something to consider. Now, are we in a bear market? If you look at this chart, we are not in a bear market. So a year ago, an early part of 2024, Bitcoin was at 67,000. It's at 82,000. So we're not in a bear market. It's going down, and it probably will go down further, but we are not in a bear market in crypto, I guess, depending on how you look at it. If you look at your account, my account says we're in a bear market. So I guess it's all relative, and it looks, you got to think about the scope that you're looking at. If you're looking at the week, yes, it's a bear market. If you're looking at the past 3 months, bear market. If you're looking at the past year, not a bear market. So we have different definitions of that. Now I'm gonna touch on quantitative easing because this is really the conversation right now. Our president is leaning on the Fed to lower interest rates, and for lower interest rates, we all at this point know how that affects us. Makes homes cheaper. No, let me not say that. It makes getting a loan, the loans cheaper. It doesn't make homes cheaper. It makes borrowing cheaper. So if paying 7% on $100,000 versus 2% on $100,000 is two different things. But this is really kind of the first time that Bitcoin and crypto has been under a more extended period of quantitative tightening. So easing is low interest rates. Tightening is higher interest rates, and that's generally speaking. There are other factors that go in that, but this is the first time that we are experiencing a tightening market for extended period of time in crypto. The good times were rolling when all the PPP loans and all the direct stimulus was coming in 2020 and 2021. From 2009 up until 2020, we basically were coming out the Great Recession, so the market was just up and to the right. There was, interest rates were almost at zero for the longest. I know somebody with like a 1.7% interest rate on their house. So Bitcoin crypto loves that, and until we get that quantitative easing, basically cheap money in the market, we're probably not going to see this. So there's an argument to be made that that's not a good thing, but this is basically how our market works. When there's easy money, when there's cheap money, then people have extra money. And what do people do with extra money? They become more risky. They take risk. And when their money is tightening, when inflation is high, when interest is high, people pull back, people sell off risk assets. So that's why you see tech taking a bath in the market. That's why you see crypto taking a bath, because people are going to sell this first before they sell their house. So that's just how this market works. But there are some traders, this may or may not happen, betting that interest rates will be cut for at least 4 times. So right now, Jerome Powell saying we're going to wait and see. The market didn't like that. It went down even further. China came out and said they're going to do retaliatory tariffs. The market went down even further. So right now, I wouldn't bet on it. I wouldn't put my eggs in this basket. So there's arguments on both sides. Arthur Hayes, the CEO of, I don't know if BitMEX is still around, but he's the founder of BitMEX and is involved with some other big projects. But he thinks that Bitcoin is going to go to 250 by the end of the year. You got other people who are from Deutsche Bank that are saying that most cryptos are going to crash. Most cryptos are going to crash. All right, let's put that out there. Bitcoin, let's just talk about Bitcoin specifically. It may or may not go down. Nobody knows. So if anybody tells you that they know what's going to happen this year, nobody really knows. They don't. So it may, but it's going to be choppy for the rest of the year. So I'm going to bring this back to one of our earlier sessions. What do you do and how do you hedge? You got to have cash. You got to have cash and stable coins. There is no getting around it. So even if this is a conservative, and a lot of people don't like this type of portfolio, but a conservative portfolio helps you sleep better at night. If you are a conservative person in your life, having heartburn here in crypto is not the way to go. But even if you are very risk tolerant and you trying to get the 50x gain, you gotta have cash in your portfolio. It's an anchor and it keeps the bleeding from going too far. So for somebody that had maybe this type of portfolio going through this time period, yes, you're still down. However, if Bitcoin is down 20%, Ethereum is down like 20%, XRP might be down 20%, and your stable coins are there, then you aren't hurting like somebody that might have had their entire portfolio in a meme coin. So you got to have cash. This is not just for crypto. You got to have cash and stable coins for crypto to buy when the market goes down, and always to anchor your account. But in the stock market, you got to have cash. In our personal life, we just got to have cash. So this is just something overall. So speaking of stable coins and where the market is going, this is on DeFi Llama. In DeFi Llama, for those of you who are not familiar with it, it tracks what's going on in decentralized finance, where the money is going and where it's leaving. But stable coins going into the DeFi platforms is at an all-time high. So that's something to think about. There's more stable coins in circulation than there's ever been. Circle, who issues USDC, is considering going public. They're going to IPO at some point this year. Tether is trying to do something where they can be on more platforms here in the US. So stable coins is going to be a really big deal. So you might want to start paying some attention to stable coins, real world assets, and tokenization of assets. So what do? This is the time to lock in. Whenever it gets noisy out there, whether it's euphoria, when it's euphoria and the market is going to go up and it's not going to go down, and diamond hands, and then you see stuff. I knew I should have took some more money out the market when Scottie Pippen said that he met Satoshi, and he was on a panel with Michael Saylor from Strategy, and he said that he met Satoshi a long time ago, and Michael Saylor looked at him like, what? I knew I probably should have sold everything right there. So there are times where you can go on Twitter. There are times where you can go on Facebook, Instagram, and you can see the social sentiment when it's just like silly. When you got celebrities that's launching meme coins and or whatever, like the latest thing, they got stuff on Pump.Fund. It's time to take some money off the table. When it gets the other way, when the market we're going into recession, it's about to be bad, it's going to zero. Just think about the last times when that happened. Think about March of 2020, when the world was going to end. Who made money then? Let's think about in 2008, 2009, when the real estate market went down, when the world was crashing and the world was going to end. Who made money at that time? Andrea says Scottie Pippen is a panelist at the Real World Asset in New York.
Maybe he'll bring Satoshi with him. Not Satoshi. What is it?
Yeah, he says he knows the founder of Bitcoin. So Yeah, maybe he'll bring Satoshi. Now, I'm ragging on Scottie. Scottie Pippen is one of my favorite all-time basketball players. Michael Jordan is one of my favorite all-time basketball players. I will not take my investment advice, and definitely not my crypto advice, from my favorite basketball players of all time. So hands down, he's top 10. But yeah, we can talk about Scottie all day. It just ain't been going up for him in the number of different. I'm gonna have to cut this out the recording before I put it online. All right. So again, when is the money made? This is when the money is made. So obviously, we all wish we even knew about. Some of us might have known about Bitcoin. So if you're one of the ones in here that bought Bitcoin before 2016, my hat is off to you, and I need you to start teaching these classes, because that's when the real money was made. The other time when it was made, 2020, that was the time to buy Bitcoin. Solana was, I think, $3 at the time. Ethereum got down to 120 bucks. Bitcoin 3,000. That's the time. After the crash, the FTX, Three Arrows Capital, Celsius, BlockFi, Voyager, everything collapsed. In crypto was the time to buy. It's starting to go down again. Is it the time to buy? I'll say this. Even at the past all-time highs, it was an all-time high at the beginning of 2018, all-time high in 2021, going into 2022. We had a previous all-time high in 2024. Even those were good times to buy Bitcoin. So dollar cost averaging is for most people, for everybody really, even if you're a trader, it's the way to go. You can buy up and down and you'll still be profitable in the end. Markets are designed to go up and to the right. So, all right, our homework before we open up for a Q&A. Tax time, got to get our taxes done. If you need an extension, go ahead and do that before the 15th. You might need some more time to gather all your documents, but at least do the extension. But whatever you do, get your taxes done. Turn off the news. Now, I'm saying that because we do need to be aware of what's going on, especially now. I mean, it's just like weird. You know, it's just a lot of stuff is coming from a lot of different ways. So I am taking in more news than I have before, but what you're looking at is important. So instead of the daily news, the big CNBC type news, or whatever your flavor is, Fox Business News, I would say get more crypto specific. Cointelegraph, Decrypt, CoinDesk, Masari. Look at the data driven articles that are coming out of crypto news outlets, and then I'm actually going to take a hiatus from crypto Twitter and the social media, just so that I can lock in and lean into the research, because that's what matters. You want to see where the activity is going, where the development is going, where the money is flowing, and you got to turn off the news in order to get that done. Get the books if you haven't already. We're going to start doing our book study on psychology of money. Overall, get out the debt and increase the cash. We got a hedge. So we don't know where this is going to go. I don't like parting from my crypto, but I will sell crypto in order to protect myself and my family. So, you need to decide how much exposure you want to this market, and you need to have that cash, because Warren Buffett, going back to him, even though he hates crypto and feels like it's just, a scam and it's worthless. One thing that he's done, he is sitting on over $330 billion in cash. So typically when he has a whole lot of cash and it increases, something comes and he just buys entire sectors. I mean, he just buys everything. So that's another reason for us to have cash. But just so that we can just have some peace in our life, we do need to get out the debt and increase the cash. So this is Financial Literacy Month. I'm going to be doing more sessions that are more focused on financial literacy. Our next session is going to be financial literacy based. Going to have some stuff in between as well. So I hope y'all enjoy that.